All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of season 2 of the Chronic's Couch. We are here. Obviously, you know, two of us. Eric is here chilling at the house. I'm here chilling with our usual, our normal, or actually our new background. And then we have our guest, Chris Borgard today, is somebody who I've known for over 10 years at this point. Chris and I actually worked together when I was a basketball player in college at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and Chris was pretty much in charge of the DEXA program. Him and another doctor, they were working together to help us pretty much achieve peak performance. So, not only from a physical standpoint, but from a performance mindset standpoint. And I'm excited about this conversation because, again, Chris and I caught up last week, and just the fact that we've been we haven't worked together obviously on a one-to-one basis or that close in 10 years, but just to be able to catch up and just see everything that he's done and the things we're going to talk about today. And most importantly, the reason why he's even joined us on the Chronic Couch, which is fascinating to say the least. So without further ado, introducing our guest, Chris, please give us, your background, man. Tell people who you are.
Yeah, hey, pleasure to be on today, Chris, and great to connect with you, and look forward to speaking more with Eric. So Chris Borgard, certified strength and conditioning specialist, strength and conditioning professional, about 20 years of experience with pro and college athletes, and more recently military tactical operators. Yeah, I remember, Chris, when we did that sports nutrition program little over 10 years ago now. I guess it was 2014. That was such a great experience, one of many while working down there at Cal Poly. And, definitely enjoyed getting to work with you and your co-captains there on the team. And that experience taught me a lot, and had a lot of fun with it.
Well, no, that's good to hear because that is something that I think kind of set you on the path of what you've kind of been accomplishing over, honestly, the time since, right? I know life has kind of taken you in different places, obviously, fast forward to the end of your time at Cal Poly. And where did you go right after that? Tell everybody, you and I met in SLO, and then you spent some more time after I left. And then after SLO, where did you go?
Yeah, so, arguably, you might say that I spent more time there in SLO than I should have. Kind of just a mixed bag of teaching and research and coaching over the years. But as you know, Chris, that's a special place, and it kind of drags you in and doesn't want to let you go. But amidst all those great experiences, I saw an opportunity come about in 2023. It was a huge initiative of the U.S. Army called H2F, or the Holistic Health and Fitness Program. So the Army is literally dropping billions. Like I said, I think right now it's the second priority. If you were to ask, the chief of staff with the Army, it's way up there on their priority list. It's this initiative where they're now going on to every Army base and assembling this dream team of specialists. So strength and conditioning coaches, certified athletic trainers, physical therapists, occupational therapists, dietitians, sports psychologists, and everybody works together to serve, these giant brigades of soldiers or paratroopers. And in the case of the position that I applied for, which was up here in Alaska, we were the first base, the first military installation outside of the lower 48, continental United States, to get this program, partly because the suicide rates were so high amongst the ranks. And so, I talked to the recruiters out there in Washington, D.C. That were recruiting for this contract position. And they asked me to go up there as the brigade lead strength and conditioning coach. So I was tasked with pretty much getting that program off the ground from the strength and conditioning standpoint. I had 12 or 13 coaches and a sports psychologist under me that were helping out with approximately 4,000 paratroopers. Designing their workouts, making their workouts better, helping them with recovery, um, all those great things. And then again, that team of physical wellness and health specialists, helping, hopefully not to prevent not just suicides, but help them with their nutrition, right? Help them with any aches or pains that they might have had, previous injuries from jumping out of airplanes, carrying huge rifles, hiking up over mountains in the snow and freezing conditions. And, a year and a half later, 2 years later, I look back at what we did, to meet those needs, to open up a 40,000 square foot facility that they could work out of and be seen and be treated at. And I think it was a good decision, and I look back on it with a fair amount of pride.
Yeah, I mean, I think I still can't get over the fact of, you chasing this, not only I would say like this opportunity, but just something that is so aligned with like your past self, right? In terms of the performance aspect of it. And then you're also getting surrounded with the best in these other lanes. So you can kind of create this comprehensive program. And that's just when you get there, right? So the fact that you were able to grow it to this facility, which is now all encompassing to not only, again, as you mentioned, lower suicide rates, but just overall fitness, overall mental fitness, biomechanics from jumping out of planes and carrying heavy rifles. I think that's something that a lot of people that aren't familiar with the military, they don't really think about. I think for the military, it's glorified in the Zero Dark 30s and the American snipers, and it's there's all these different things in our media that glorify the heroes, but they forget about the basic biomechanics that are completely under stress every single day through the regimented training and just the mental warfare that you have to go through the programming. So, on that note, I mean, you and I have talked about this, but what was a day in the life like for you, and how your life pretty much was on par with the schedule of the people enlisted?
Yeah, I mean, up here, the Arctic Angels, as they call them, the brigade that's based out of two bases in Alaska. They have an incredibly high ops tempo, and the demands that are placed on them simply from just an environmental standpoint, right? I mean, with the threat of Russia looming so close, and other adversaries just not far across the ocean, what they're tasked to be ready for, again, from that readiness standpoint, is pretty crazy, and they're expected to be able to do it at a moment's notice in very, very extreme conditions. So, we sat in the cold weather indoctrination briefs, talking about how to prevent frostbite by wearing, 4 or 5 different layers, and hypothermia, and being able to operate in conditions where uh, your fluid is freezing up in your trucks. It's 40, or you've got to carry a 80-pound ruck load on your back through 3 feet of snow, and make sure that your rifle is operating correctly, and you've got the proper camouflage on, and again, the proper layers, because once you start sweating, now you're at risk of dehydration, and that moisture can actually contribute to a frostbite risk. So all these crazy things that people don't think about, and then you realize, oh wait, these soldiers still have families, right? They still have bills to pay when they go on these deployments halfway across the world, or where they're training in these extreme conditions, building snow caves, or learning how to dress squirrels, rabbits, whatever they can kill to survive. I mean, a lot of pretty tough demands, and honestly, it was a pleasure to serve them, but it also made for some challenges, even with me and my staff, thinking about to effectively do the job and to take care of them and to get some buy-in, for them to want to work with us and train with us and work off our programs or do the exercises or rehab therapies we provide. We need to be out there, so to go out there and again, single digit temperatures, dark 30 for a 5-mile run. I encouraged, my coaches to do it. I did it. A 12-mile ruck with again, like a 70, 80-pound load. All those things are kind of come with the job. And, for whatever reason, it's been like this way for a long time, Chris. Like the Army, they like to get up first thing, crack of dawn, get their workout in, right? At 6 o'clock or 6:30 in the morning. So of course that means as a coach or as a trainer, you're up, you're doing those things too. So, we had, I think one time the base commander wanted to do like a tackle football game in the snow, and again, it was 6 in the morning, dark, middle of December, kind of, not the typical workout or activity you'd think about, but we were out there to support and ultimately, had a good time. And that's the kind of thing that, makes the soldier, makes the troops appreciate you more with that support.
Oh, indeed. I mean, it's the sweat equity, right? Knowing that you're out there with them and in the
That's
in the
right.
trenches, metaphorically speaking, I think is super important. Um, I have like one question before we kind of fast forward a little bit, and I'm curious because Eric was an elite gymnast. I played basketball, and now you obviously have this military experience. You also have your sports experience, but like if you, from all of your time, just either as an athlete or as a coach, what is the one thing that helps the body recover or that you've seen promotes recovery the fastest?
Without question, it's sleep, and as you know, Chris, I spent a lot of time, master's level coursework with nutrition, worked with your basketball team and several others, both college and pro, promoting good sports nutrition and recovery nutrition. Uh, but it is the goal, right? I mean, sleep and recovery hormones, I think, are by far the biggest slice of the pie when you're talking about being able to recover day to day, week to week, with serious demands of intense competition. And I did a talk with the paratroopers, in fact, just 6 months ago or so, kind of showing them how that those recovery hormones intertwine with good sleep hygiene, really are the best and most critical things that they can do to allow their bodies to be ready for whatever the mission demands are.
So I'm going to jump right in because you said sleep, and automatically I'm just like, I'm ready to go. So for me, sleep was and has been still probably the biggest struggle and side effect to come off of. If you don't know, I had some herniated discs and some bulging discs. I've had 3 back surgeries, and when I was in the thick of it, I was not sleeping at all. And so can you kind of you kind of already hit on this, but can you kind of hone in a little bit more about the importance of, or what happens if you're not sleeping? Of course, you're not recuperating and your body's probably not recovering, but maybe how does that affect you mentally? And then do you have any recommendations for someone like myself who who struggles with sleeping because of how uncomfortable they are, and maybe they've tried sleep medicine and they don't like it, or if they want to go an all natural way. Can you kind of talk about that?
I mean, I think whoops.
Yeah, we're good.
Did I lose you guys?
No, we're here.
Yeah,
Okay.
we did.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so Eric, as you know, one of the biggest factors with sleep and sleep quality, again, are those recovery hormones. So you talk about growth hormone, you talk about testosterone, right? All those hormones are going to contribute in muscle regrowth, muscle rebuilding, and then on the flip side of the testosterone and the growth hormone and the insulin growth factor, you've got some negative or catabolic hormones too, and these will actually, things like cortisol will work to kind of break the body down, and so depending on those levels of cortisol or catecholamines, if you're shortcutting the sleep and you're not getting, the quality of sleep that you need night to night, you're producing a lot of those, catabolic hormones that are not just going to lead to more soreness, and a lack of muscle rebuilding, but are also going to tax the immune system and lead to breakdowns, both physical and mental, in the body.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's just validating to hear it from a pro like yourself. Like I said, I've been trying to really work on the sleep issue. I guess if we can kind of also shift gears and kind of talk about nerve pain, and for someone who is experiencing nerve pain for the first time, can you offer any advice? And then also, I've been dealing with my back injury for a few years now, and it's what I've learned is that I've had to weed in and out and figure out the good doctors that are really want to help, the ones that don't. So like just talking to you, it's like I learn more, and I recently learned from my surgeon that you can't put a time on when nerve pain is going to heal, and that's the most frustrating part. So for me, I'm having to learn acceptance, which Chris and I talk about all the time. Acceptance comes with being injured. So yeah, if you can kind of talk about nerve pain, your knowledge, and maybe your personal experience of what you've endured with nerve pain yourself.
Yeah, so it's talking with Chris and also hearing a little bit about your struggles. About 7 months ago now, while working with the soldiers, I was also in a position where I found myself about 10 days in a row preparing to assist with our best Ranger train up. I was not getting the sleep. I think I was at like 10 days consecutively of like 5 hours or less. And when that happens, a lot of things start to go awry in the body. I mean, there's been studies that show similar brain effects to what we see with like Parkinson's disease, and dementia when you're cutting your sleep that low, chronically, right? So during that period, and you also had the stress of the presidential election. One day I found myself all of a sudden just like, and it happened immediately, but my mouth was numb. I was having difficulty chewing certain foods. And I looked in the mirror that night, and sure enough, like, I had a big droop in the face, on one side, kind of looked like a perpetual frown, wasn't able to close this right eye independently or at all. And so I rushed into the emergency room. And thankfully, that night I was able to get some corticosteroids and some antivirals going. Uh, and they say when you do that, you're able to recover from nerve injury more often than not. In my case, I tested negative for a stroke. All the CAT scan results came back positive for the vascular system, so no blockages, anything like that. But the ER doctor said, "Hey, you've got a really severe case of Bell's palsy." And what the Bell's palsy is, it's basically a severe inflammation of the cranial nerve, which kind of protrudes through a foramen in the skull right there, and then runs down. And there's a branch of nerves rather, that network out and function to control the eye, the cheek, different parts of the face near the jaw. So for the next 6 weeks, yeah, it was kind of a long, trying period, required lots of patience, not being able to necessarily chew or swallow, or even smile, right? Certainly not to sing. Heck, just 2 weeks ago, I found myself being able to whistle for the first time, right? Since the diagnosis. And then your eye, since it doesn't close, becomes really, really dry. So you're waking up multiple times a night feeling like you got sand in your eye and having to apply eye drops overnight and throughout the day. Having difficulty, people understanding your speech, slurring your words a little bit, not able to pronounce certain consonants or whatever it is. But as I told Chris, in the whole scheme of things, a little bit of nerve inflammation, regardless of how temporary, it could have been a lot worse. You think about those patients going through stroke. You think about more serious neurological conditions such as Parkinson's disease or ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And really, I didn't have much to complain about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that Eric and I talked about too, is just in our experience with nerve pain. I mean, inflammation of any nerve, right? And I think it's like you said, the smallest bit of inflammation can make a huge difference. So, for whether it's in Eric's case, we know you have some inflammation, in the spine because of the herniations, and then it just branches all the way out, especially when it's in that where Eric's is in the lower, where it kind of just branches out to your entire body, right? So Eric has talked about his struggles with just feeling like his hands and his feet are just constantly on fire, and all these different, like having to walk, and us bonding over gabapentin and talking about all the different things for nerve pain that I know some of our guests actually have reached out to us for, because whether it's been for like nerves in the leg or just nerves throughout the body, we talk about gabapentin as something that you're prescribed for nerve pain. That's it can help us a lot. For a lot of people, they don't see result with it, unfortunately. But you mentioned you have some of the antiviral drugs on it as well. Did he, like, was there ever did you have gabapentin, or were they prescribing ibuprofen because it was inflammation? Like, outside of the antivirals, were you on anything else besides the corticosteroids?
Yeah, Chris. So my condition was rare, and the ER docs were actually stumped because I had severe pain for at least 2 or 3 months after the incident. So I'm talking, 8 or 9 on a scale of 10. Super sensitive to the touch, and it would radiate daily. Might be forehead, might be temple area, chin, under the chin, back of the skull even. And they said normally with Bell's palsy, we don't see this kind of localized pain. So I had the big bottle of gabapentin, which, as you know, can be one of those addictive painkillers. And thankfully, I never had any struggles with that. But I certainly did that for at least 8 to 10 weeks. And more recently, I was prescribed lidocaine, which is a topical gel. You got to be kind of careful applying it because it burns. But that's also said to help with the nerve recovery when you apply that in those areas where you're experiencing pain, discomfort. And then the other thing that I was able to do, and I found a lot of success with this actually, was just the electrostim, the tiny little portable electrostim units called the TENS. Placing those electrodes, and again, the face is an area where you have to be careful, right? But hooking up those electrode pads, placing one kind of in the over the sideburns area where that cranial nerve, that facial nerve passes through, and then placing another terminal in down by the corner of the mouth or up above the eyebrow, and just doing like 10 or 12 minutes at 80 to 120 hertz, just like you did in the training room, right? Coming back from like a strained muscle with the stim units. That's really seemed to help my recovery over the last 5 or 6 months.
Well, I'm glad your recovery's improving. So that's always great to hear. You mentioned sports psychologists earlier. I like Chris, am a millennial, and when I was a gymnast growing up, it was almost taboo. I remember, like, if you heard about your teammate going to see a sports psychologist, it was like you can't figure your shit out on your own. Fast forward to when I was coaching, maybe a decade later, it became more common. And even now, I mean, you talked about it yourself. Can you, if there's parents or even kids that are listening, can you kind of talk about what a sports psychologist does and the importance of it? Because I think my knowledge really of a sports psychologist is like, let's say you have a mental block and you can't do a skill anymore. That's when you would go see a sports psychologist. But obviously it's deeper than that. Can you kind of dive into that?
It is, yeah. I mean, serving an elite tactical population with all the stringent requirements of not even their operations or their deployments, but even their training. We had a really good sports psychologist. He was actually a collegiate water polo player down there at Pepperdine, and a guy that had himself competed in some really, really arduous triathlons and such. So I really loved having him connect with the soldiers, and he would do anything from counseling, prior to Ranger school or Special Forces train ups. He would work with the soldiers one-on-one about their mental approach to get ready and prepare for those arduous train ups. He even did a cold weather acclimatization protocol for us. So to prepare for the freezing winter conditions, he would actually have, you're going to like this, Chris, but he would actually have the paratroopers do a graduated protocol of ice cold showers, just building up from like 45 seconds to a minute to 4 minutes. And then I think at the end of the 8-week period, they would all go together, strip down to their skivvies and grab onto a rope and wade out in a freezing cold river in Alaska. So just, again, improving that mental strength, resiliency. Right now I'm working with an athlete who's going to a year from now, try to place really high in the Tour Divide bike race. It's a multi-day, multi-stage race that goes from Banff, Canada, all the way down to Mexico. And I'm helping him with his nutrition and his heart rate based training zones, all those things I can provide as a strength and conditioning professional. But I really encouraged him to reach out to the sports psychologist, because one of the issues he's had in the past with his training is just burnout, right? When he's training on the bike for 10 or 12 hours a day, 70 or 100 miles every day, just physiological burnout, physically and mentally. How do you keep that consistency of training going at such a high level for so long to be able to prepare yourself not to break down? And so sports psychologists, what they bring to the table, it's a different skill set, but super valuable, in that they can put themselves in your shoes mentally and just drop little dimes here and there on approaches to take, to be, again, steadfast and resilient and able to withstand those mental rigors.
I think it's super important and instrumental, especially if you're a kid, going through the intensity of whatever sport it is. I so wish that I had, sought that out when I was growing up. Unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, I've been unpacking all my sports stuff with a sports psychologist. I've done it in the past, and I recently resumed, and I definitely am reaping the benefits of it. So to hear you say that makes me feel good. I got one more question for you, and it's for all the back people out there like myself who struggle with back pain. And as you know, back pain has many different tentacles, and it can affect pretty much I always say I feel it in my fingernails. What are 3 things that you could recommend to someone that's struggling with back pain? It doesn't, or if you can't put it to 3, if it's one overarching thing, what you got?
No, that's a great question, Eric. And right now I'm working with another former athlete of mine who was an All-American player collegiately and then played at the pro level. He's a firefighter now, and he's dealing with potentially being discharged because of back pain so severe, including all kinds of nerve issues. And I've got him working on some of my programs, and he's also seeing a physical therapist at the same time. I think with the back, it takes a while to really master. It's such a complex joint, right? If you look at the size and all the origins and connecting points of the spine and the spinal processes. But the main thing that you can do for yourself as the years go by to prevent back issues is to keep that core strong. Really be able to keep that core strong and engaged all the way up through the lumbar, thoracic, and cervical spine. And that's hinging forward, back, flexion, extension, rotations, diagonal load bearing. There's a multitude of ways to attack that strength, but you can't underestimate that. The second thing, flexibility is huge, so even as a big, strong, like former college football player, and flexibility has always been huge to me. I taught yoga at Cal Poly when Chris was there and long after. It's super important, right, to be able to maintain that range of motion in all those different areas with all those different movements. And then, the last thing, Eric, kind of getting back to your point earlier, is when you look at the incredible pathway of nerves, right, that innervate all those muscles and all the muscles that connect to the spine as well, just the realization that when you're dealing with muscle groups, you know, that critical to supporting your entire spine, there's going to be days in that rehab process where it feels like you're taking 2 steps forward and then 1 step back. And that's what I've always tried to get my athletes to remember is there's no magic wand, you know, there's certainly no magic pill, and there's not even a magic surgery. I think many surgeons would tell you that back surgery is sometimes the last resort, you know? So as frustrating as it can be, just being patient and knowing that there's going to be good days and bad days, but if you stick with it and you do all these things to shore up, you know, the shock absorbing muscles that protect that spine and all its multiple functions, you can, over the long term, put yourself in a much better, much healthier position for your overall spinal health.
Thank you for that. I luckily had a surgeon who his whole motto was surgery is the last resort. Unfortunately, I had to have it, you know, a few times. But no, I mean, those 3 points definitely make a lot of sense, and it definitely ring true to me because, like I said, I'm going on year 3 of this, and it's kind of, you know, you're figuring out what works for your body, and you have to experiment things. You mentioned one of your patients or clients, you know, was tag teaming different things, coming up with your own program. So that's kind of in the process. That's where I'm at in the process of, you know, having a massage therapist. Okay, my back pain is manifested in other ways, so I have to go see a urologist. So that all makes sense, and thank you.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, just talking to Chris last week about his long journey over the last, you know, 8 or 9 months, it's tough. Again, we talk about that sports psychology, but just to stay positive, to stay in that you know, positive mental frame when you're experiencing, again, okay, well, now I'm feeling better here, but now I'm dealing with this, right? Or we've got a complication, or I spent a bunch of money on this technique and it's done nothing for me. You know, the addiction to pain pills, right? I mean, that's a huge crisis right now in America is the opioid epidemic. So with something as severe as you guys have been through, I commend you for, you know, staying the course, staying positive, keeping that positive mental attitude, and staying hopeful on you know, the next approach that can help put you over the top.
Yeah, and I tell you what, staying positive is very tough, especially when you're, you know, bound to your bed. And so that's why Chris and I came up with the Chronic Couch and having awesome people like you, Chris, on here, because we're just, you know, I've only met you once today, and I can just tell you're just a nice person trying to help people, and that's what this is all about.
Awesome. Thank you guys again for having me.
Oh no, of course. I mean, I think this is something that it was after talking to you last week and just realizing, you know, the body of work that you put not only forth in the past 10 years, but you know, the stuff that you have going on in the future, I think is going to only bode well for you helping out people like Eric said. And I think that, you know, I want to put kind of a bow on your story because I don't want to leave our audience with a cliffhanger. I want to talk about your recovery, Chris, as it's kind of manifested itself from where you started. But obviously, we know with the antivirals, we know about the lidocaine, you know, but you shared with me last week, you know, pretty recently, I think 2 weeks now, you were able to kind of get back to something that you enjoy doing. So how is life kind of risen from that valley, if you will?
I think I saw a post that you did, Chris, last week, kind of telling, asking some of your audience to, uh, in one word, kind of describe where they're at right now emotionally. And for me, if I had to limit it to one word, I would just say grateful. You know, grateful that the physical ordeal, the setbacks weren't more serious. Um, um, but as with anything, Bell's palsy, um, you know, limiting severe back issues, or uh, you know, a knee injury that possibly could even lead to amputation. Um, you got to have perspective, and I was, like I said, grateful that it wasn't worse. Um, you know, I'm grateful to be starting a new job, and kind of uh, striking out into a little bit of a new career path with the hospital system. You look at the federal hiring freeze that's been going on for the last 6 months. I think I read yesterday that over 22,000 people have lost their jobs, federal government employees. So um, again, uh, getting right back to work with the military, the tactical population, doesn't look like the best option right now. So to have work, and to be able to continue to help people in this capacity, and have my health in order to be able to do so, I'm just feeling very grateful.
That's the best way to put it, honestly. And I think that's kind of something that I think more people, I wish they would notice and realize every morning how much of a blessing it is to wake up and not have pain radiating through your body, pain radiating through your face, waking up with migraines, waking up with different types of ailments or injuries. And, most people that wake up with a headache and like, oh, my life's over. I don't want to get out of bed. But, there's people out there that are going through a lot worse. But I think it's important to understand that both of them deserve space, right? And I think for making sure that people hear these stories similar to yours, where it's like, okay, it's something like you said, these are also injuries that can flare up again in the future, right? So those palsy can flare up. Obviously, Eric's back pain can flare up. I had an infection in my knee last week, so it's just this constant game of whack-a-mole that we're playing. And like you said, the mental fortitude and the mental elasticity that it requires is, it may not be the game you signed up to play, but damn it, you got to play it,
Yeah.
because it's a lot better than pressing game over, right? Or not insert your coins at the arcade to insert new challenger. But
Right.
before we get you out of here, Chris, I definitely want to give people a chance to. It's not like you need any more qualifiers by any means, but I want to give you a chance to talk about workout structure and just some of the cool stuff you've been able to build on your own with that.
Yeah, well, appreciate it. Yeah. Um, Pre-COVID, I found myself in the position where I was fortunate to help out a couple acquaintances who were training to prepare for the Navy SEALs and the Buds pipeline, and I was able to help three individuals successfully pass and become Navy SEALs. And then didn't think much of it. I kind of had I started workout structure around 2021, more as just a blog, right? Just kind of a source of free information. And then when COVID hit, um, it kind of struck me. It was like, hey, now's your chance. Now's your shot to get some of these great free, resources and some of these programs in people's hands. And I started with my tactical operator prep, or top programs, doing hours and hours of filming and video editing and audio overdubbing for technique. Got those programs up on my website, which is www.workoutstructure.com. And then I followed those up with a sports nutrition ebook and, several sports specific training programs, multiple phases of each, some that are even year round. And then resources on flexibility, mobility, injury rehab. They're all there, like I said, representing a body of over 20 years of work in this profession. So, getting those out there, continuing to blog and offer some free tips when and where I can. But love to help people is the basic underlying theme here. And even if it's for me, even if workout structure never becomes my primary source of income, that's okay, because helping out X number of former athletes or military operators or firefighters, whatever it is, that's something I can feel good about.
Fulfillment is the name of the game. I think that's super important. And yeah, I mean, I think that's again, I always like to wrap these up with a nice little bow. And then before we ship it out to people, the whole purpose of the Chronic Couch is to be able to have these conversations and be able to have people not only reach out to Eric and myself, but our guests. So, for people who do want to not only maybe ask you questions, Chris, or want access to some of your information or your blog, like where can they find you out on the internet so they can come track you down?
Yeah, sure. Anyone can email me at chris@workoutstructure.com. And we also have an Instagram, Facebook, just at Workout Structure. Again, if you want to check us out or reach out to me directly.
And I'm going to add, the website's really cool because there's all these different sports, and I saw seniors were on there. So it's really tailored to a bunch of different departments. So it's really, really, really well done.
To include pregnancy.
Exactly. I mean, come on now. It's the Chronic Couch. We don't put no BS out there. We only bring the best from our guests. All right. So there's definitely something out there for everybody. But again, as I mentioned, Chris, thank you for joining us, man. I think you've not only put together an incredible body of work through the Workout Structure program, but just your experience and what you've been doing for our country military over the past few years. And again, what you and I know you're headed to do next. But more importantly, just the fact that you're not gatekeeping that information. And I really appreciate that. I'm sure our listeners will as well, because whether they have to go through us or go to you directly, I definitely think that the information that you have built out, especially from the expertise that you've had with it being so expansive, is a resource that people need to take advantage of. So hopefully this is the launch pad for them. And if your DMs start getting flooded, we'll take our little 3.5%. That's all.
Hopefully it helps. Hey, keep spreading the good word, guys, and sharing these positive stories. And again, thanks for having me on today.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. Sounds good, Chris. Well, again, thank you so much, everybody. This has been another episode of the Chronic Couch. As y'all know, we are in a groove right now, so we'll be seeing y'all next week. But in the meantime, y'all know where to find us. Like I always say, Eric, we ain't hard to find. We everywhere. So we'll talk to y'all soon and see you on the next one.
Later.